win over the Lakers, highlighted by this block from Ja Morant. This is one of the most athletic feats that I've ever seen in my whole entire life. Turns the ball over, jumps up, blocks it with two hands, and then starts the break. Jalen, what do you think of this block?
You know Ja Morant is one of my favorites since college. And the beauty of how he's performing and how people now are able to appreciate it is his amazing athleticism, court vision, ability to pass, because he's not a knockdown three shooter. And so many times, right, it's easier to look at a Steph Curry or a Dame Dollar or even a Trae Young, because these guys are shooting the ball from 30 plus feet. A guy like Ja Morant is dazzling us with his athleticism, Jacoby. And I've been saying this to you forever. He played like a guy that was playing with the kids his age at the park, and then playing with the older kids as they came to the park. And then he started to do his drills and wait for the night thing to happen. And then when the other run, the best run of the day happened, then he's still at the gym. That's what I see from Ja. And for the casuals that's going to talk about Memphis today, they started this streak without Ja Morant.
Yep.
Bane has been terrific this year. You know how much I love Dylan Brooks, who's been in and out of the lineup. And yesterday was also Jaren Jackson Jr. And so Taylor Jenkins, the last couple of years, has done an amazing job of getting this team to the playoffs. And now they're in top 4 in the Western Conference. And they waxed the Lakers. I mean, hey, dog, I know they're playing without AD and all that. They waxed the Lakers. You see Ja Morant looking at the rim on that lob?
Well,
you see Bane trying to...
Ja gets so much attention and he deserves it, but if you watch the game yesterday, this was not Ja Morant putting the team on his back and beating the Lakers. Bane has been amazing all season long, and he was yesterday, and Triple J has also been great lately as well. This Memphis team is for real and needs to be dealt with. There's so much more that we need to deal with from this crazy weekend in
trying to, block the shot, stop him from scoring, and secure the ball at the same time, and it worked out perfect for me.
Boy, he was head so far above the rim, I believe his hands were at the top of the box.
He got rockets in his calf muscles.
The most athletic guard in the league by far.
Now I'm probably all over the internet for it.
Honestly, we can't see that block enough. We were debating this in the newsroom. Is it a block? Is it a steal? I mean, either way, it was just incredible. And we just heard a lot of accolades, but Frank Vogel might have summed it up the best when he said that was just a special play by a special player. And that play was just one of the many highlights Ja has had in Los Angeles this year. So in the same game, Morant showed off those rockets in his calves again, skying to finish the alley-oop pass from Desmond Bane. And Ja finished with 16 points in the Grizzlies
eye at the rim
over the Lakers. And then, cast your minds way back in October against the Lakers. Ja finishes with an acrobatic up and under
Jelly Malika.
Anthony Davis. That is the definition of jelly. And Kent Bazemore, too. He's averaging 24.7 points per game this season. So, back with Shanae and Matt. So Ja was the star of this show and star of so many games this season. I mean, just a human highlight. But Memphis, they've won 8 straight games. So, Shanae, how dangerous, 9 straight games, how dangerous is this team?
I mean, that play summarizes why they've been extremely successful, especially in this win streak. The Memphis Grizzlies have done it with defense. And I want to show you this. Producer Cesar had some numbers that we discovered. They're first in rebounds per game average, first in steals per game average, first in blocks per game. Their defense has held them down. It's been really impressive how they've really, but always surprised Memphis, the nitty gritty, the dirty. They do the dirty work. But also it's another D, development, the development of their young stars. I mean, what can be said about Ja, what he's been able to do so far leading his team? And then you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., who's living up to the potential we all knew as a long, lanky, off-the-dribble type of post scorer that can stretch it out. And Desmond Bane, going from about 7 points per game to now 17, that type of collective growth on both ends of the floor has been instrumental to them. And that's why they're at the top of the standings, surprisingly.
Shanae, you said something interesting, development. Normally it's going to be growing pains and struggling while you're developing. These guys are developing and winning. And I think that's very important. This is a very dangerous team, and if things kind of stick to the way they are, I couldn't imagine what the second round Golden State versus Memphis will look like in the playoffs if things stay the way they are. But this is a young, hungry team that plays hard on both ends of the ball. And anytime you play hard on both ends of the ball, all those stats you just pointed out, Sinead, those are all hustle. You got to want to rebound. You got to want to get steals. You got to want to whatever the third one was. That's all. That's all effort stuff. You know what I mean? So offensively, they got a three-headed monster with Morant. Brooks obviously out with a sprained ankle, but we know what he kind of made a name for himself in the playoffs last year. And then Desmond Bane, huge improvements on both ends of the ball. So he just makes his team that much tough. This is a very deep team. 5 guys averaging double figures. And this is a scary team that no one, including the Warriors, want to see in the playoffs. This is a very good team. And I'll say this. I hope that it works out for Ja Morant to make his first NBA All-Star because his numbers are there, the leadership's there. We just know how tight the West is.
Yeah, it's hard to see that not coming, though. Like, it feels like, was it a block or was it a steal? I mean, I know how it was registered, but
it was just incredible. I don't even know what you want to call it, but
half block, half steal, all incredible.
His armpits on the backboard. You know, he's a guard. Like, it's crazy to think how high he's jumping on the lobs and the blocks. This kid's incredible.
Armpits on the backboard. Well, with that visual, the Grizzlies are going to host the Warriors tomorrow night. That is going to be an exciting game, but the Grizzlies are going to be without their second leading scorer, Dillon Brooks. So Brooks is averaging 18.4 points per game. Remember, he rolled his left ankle in Saturday's win versus the Clippers. And then yesterday, senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski reported that Brooks is expected to miss 3 to 5 weeks, and he could remain sidelined for a little while. So, speaking of Adrian Wojnarowski, he joins me now in studio, and Woj will be here for the entire week, bringing you news from around the NBA. But Woj, let's start with Dillon Brooks. Just how big of a concern is this injury for Memphis?
Well, listen, it's a significant ankle sprain, Malika, and, you know, like we reported yesterday, 3 to 5 weeks, but they haven't ruled out the possibility they could just sit him through the All-Star break in mid-February. But what you've seen with this Memphis team is, listen, their depth and the way their benches perform, the way their young players have developed, it gives them the ability to allow Dillon Brooks to heal, get better. Listen, their second leading scorer this year, certainly has become an elite defender for them. But they'll get him back, and this is a team that you saw without Ja Morant barely lost the game.
Right. So we're also just about a month away from the NBA trade deadline. So what are the Grizzlies' plans as we approach out that last night about why he thought potentially that was? Why do you think everyone resonates with this return?
He's just a good guy. He's super transparent. What you see is what you get with Klay, on and off the court. Someone who loves his dog, someone who loves to be on boats, someone that loves the game of basketball. And you've never heard anything bad, whether a teammate, opponent, say anything bad about Klay. It's just always, that's Klay. Klay is, he's a great guy. So, again, probably the most liked guy right up there with Damian Lillard in the NBA as far as just getting respect from his counterparts and being loved.
Well, and as he was walking off the court, he said, this is only the beginning. Do you think, now that Klay Thompson is with the Warriors, now that he is back, what does that do to elevate this team, Janae?
How special is it that he can say this is the beginning, knowing that, a couple years back, this was the new dynasty of the NBA. And this is new life for them. This is a team that right now is currently tied for number 1 in the NBA, 30-9, and they just got their, perennial all-star shooter that can only make Steph Curry's looks even better, tag teaming with most improved type of candidate in Jordan Poole. Everything is all about, energy, development, whatever the Bay Area has, you just want to bottle that up for a franchise, not only just for what they have done and meant for the sport, but more importantly, how those guys treat one another when they play. Draymond as well. It's just a very, very special place, and you just felt that yesterday.
And one thing I'd like to add is I think the addition of Andrew Wiggins and him kind of figuring out who he is as an NBA player, I think this is the best Andrew Wiggins we've seen. And everyone's question was Klay's lateral movement. We didn't have to see much of it last night, but we know Andrew Wiggins is someone who can be a lockdown defender, and he can take the best wing offensive player until Klay feels like his legs are right. So there's no real rush. It's just Klay getting his cardio back, getting his legs back, and there's really no pressure just to go out there and play every night.
And that's a good point, because before it used to be Klay Thompson taking the top two-way guy, knocking down threes, but then guarding that big guy on the 6'7" wing on the other team. But I think the Warriors and their process with, strength, conditioning, training, they need to be commended, because there are points where, athletes feel like they want to go out there earlier, right? Instead, they're like, all right, Christmas Day may not happen. A week or two into January, that's better for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's those small windows of 2 to 3 weeks that can change everything when it comes to someone's future, especially coming back from injury. Your girl knows about this.
Well, and Steve Kerr said that they do need to continue to figure out their rotations because they didn't have Draymond Green last night. We'll get into that.
Well, for a second.
We'll get into that in just a moment, but there's still something to figure out and to be said there. But Klay said, I asked him, I was sitting in the press conference after the game, I asked him about their pursuits and what he feels now that he is back. And he said, well, at the beginning of the season, we all sat down, we wrote down our goals, and all of our goals were to win a championship. And now he sees how he fits into that pursuit. I do want to talk a little bit more about Klay's debut with senior NBA writer for The Undefeated, Mark Spears. Mark, we were both in the building last night. What stood out to you most during Klay Day?
Man, when he walked out on the floor with his hands up in